Good evening. My name is Victor Peoples, and I currently serve as the Director of Health and Service Initiatives for Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. This evening, we're going to enter into the realm, your realm of home, and discuss some of the things that affect our mental during the holidays. And this we titled Surviving the Holiday Blues. Um, we're going to talk about some stressors that individuals may go through and kind of sort of equip you with some tools to help you navigate things such as grief from loss, seasonal depression, financial issues, anxiety, tension, and also COVID 19. So at this time, I would like to introduce to you guys Brother Johnny Gaithers, who serves as our coordinator for T.I.M.E.
All right.
Johnny?
All right, Victor, thank you for introducing me and good evening, everyone. My name is Johnny Gathers. I am the National Coordinator for Time. Time stands for Thetamen Improving through Mental Empowerment. With this initiative that we're working on, we're able to focus on the categories of mental health, financial wellness, and legal wellness. And today, with this presentation, we want to be able to address the mental aspects when it comes to the holiday season. So without further ado, we're going to get into the presentation. So to start us off, we're going to be talking about the holiday stressors. So there are different stresses that we face with going through the holiday season. So the first thing is our emotions. During the holiday season, our emotions, we don't know what to expect when it comes to our emotions. We sometimes reflect on different things within the holidays. We focus on sadness, happiness, joy, loss. We actually experience all different kinds of emotions during the holiday season. Shopping for gifts is a holiday stressor. There are moments where we kind of want to people please our family members, want to people please friends and other counterparts when it comes to shopping for gifts. And sometimes we don't really be honest with ourselves and say that, well, we can't afford to buy this person a gift, or sometimes we feel guilty within ourselves when we feel guilty within ourselves when we don't buy someone a gift, and we kind of get into that point of say, you know what, I'm gonna just buy this gift anyway. Another holiday stressor is finances, budgeting, and credit. As we all know, during this holiday season, we all go into our financial rut because sometimes we overspend when it comes to our shopping for gifts and things for our family members and others. But then also finances come into a play because we always trying to get to a point that we make sure our bills is intact. We make sure everything is getting taken care of before we go into the new year. Family get-togethers can be a holiday stressor. Some Most of us like to be around our families, and there are individuals that don't like to be around their families. So sometimes those individuals that do not like to be around their families can get into a moment that they are stressed out because they don't really want to socialize with family members. They don't want to be around their family members. And even with individuals that want to be with their family members, they get stressed out because they don't really know how to interact or socialize and things of that nature. And then lastly, a holiday stressor that we're still facing to this day is the COVID-19 pandemic. As we all know, within this past year, we've been going through this pandemic. And right now, it's an increase within this pandemic because we are more learning more about learning more about COVID-19, but also we are being introduced to the different variances that are being presented to us. But now, what I'm going to do is turn it over to talking about stages of grief and loss.
Greetings. My name is Charlie Simpson. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I am here to discuss the 5 stages of grief. If we can get that PowerPoint up, I will. Dr. Kubler-Ross did a lot of extensive research evaluating individuals that go through the loss of a loved one. And in that study, she was able to identify 5 different stages that people go through whenever they lose a loved one. A lot of these may be familiar, a lot of them may not, but I will go over each stage. And the first one is denial. When we first hear the loss of a loved one, you just have this shock, this confusion. You oftentimes in this stage question what happened, and a lot of fear, a lot of avoidance that also occurs when I first hear that I've lost a loved one. Typically there's another stage you eventually will go through, and that's the anger, the frustrations. How could this happen? This is not supposed to happen. And a lot of anxiety that can also come along with that stage as well. Then you find yourself going to what we call the bargaining stage. And in this stage, you start to become overwhelmed, a lot of flight, a lot of helplessness. And oftentimes in the bargaining, you begin to tell yourself, if only I would have done this. When they called me that last time, I should have checked in a little bit harder to make sure that they were okay. If I could have been at their house before they got in that situation, I could have prevented it. And that's part of just being able to bargain and do what you, or go through a process of figuring out what I could have done to have fixed that situation. And then there's the depression, struggling to find meaning, reaching out to others, telling one story. And oftentimes, this is the scariest phase to be in, because a lot of the time people look at depression as this dark place, but it is a stage that you will experience. And oftentimes, just being able to just be in a place where there's little sleep, oversleeping, little eating, overeating, not finding a lot of interest in the things that you once were interested in. And it's perfectly fine to be able to go through that stage. The overall objective is, how can I get to a stage of acceptance, which is that last stage. And in that stage, you begin to look at life without that individual and being able to move on. You begin to see some of the light at the end of the tunnel. And what's really important about these 5 stages is that your body will go through each one of them, not necessarily in this order, but you will experience each part of this stage when you lose a loved one. And that pretty much wraps up the 5 stages of grief. Now I'm going to go in how to handle grief and loss. First and foremost, you have to allow yourself to process the emotions. Basically, what I was sharing before, your body will experience each one of those stages. Oftentimes, when people experience uncomfortable emotions, they begin to go into a place to try to suppress, try to stay busy, try to use the coping mechanisms that may not be the healthiest, drinking, alcohol, just to get the body to stay away from those emotions that it is experiencing. But it is important that you allow yourself to process those emotions, but more importantly, find healthy outlets that can help you navigate through those emotions in the healthiest way possible. Understand that your emotions have value. That's extremely important. You have a right to go through what you're going through. You have a right to feel what you're feeling. And oftentimes, people on the outside of your grieving may not understand exactly what you're experiencing in that moment. And it's just your objective to just be able to say, it doesn't matter what other people think about what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling. I have a right to feel the way that I feel, and to not be afraid to address what's going on with you, and just be able to find support, that positive outlet of friends, family. Oftentimes, when you lose a loved one, those individuals that were close to that loved one oftentimes can come in and just be a support. Being able to just hear the stories, how the person that you lost was an influence for other people, and just being able to have that support around you help definitely helps guide you through those 5 stages of grief. But more importantly, know that you have a choice. You know, you have that right. It's up to you to be able to say, how am I going to navigate through these stages of grief? Will I go to unhealthy outlets that may try to suppress how I feel? Or will you challenge yourself to find some of those healthy outlets, being able to exercise, maybe putting yourself in a grief group, or even just surrounding yourself by those that can definitely help you normalize the things that you're going through. And these are some really good tips, especially during the holiday season. Finding ways to remember your loved one, but more importantly, don't try to shy away from those conversations about those loved ones during the holidays. This is a really good time to just remember the good times and to be able to share those good times with those that may be around you during the holiday season. I'll now turn it back over to Brother Peoples or Johnny.
All right, so I'll be discussing holiday blues. So with holiday blues, we know that many people can experience feelings of anxiety, depression during the holiday season. People who already live with a mental health condition should take extra care to tend to their overall health and wellness during this time. The reason why it's mainly important for individuals that are already diagnosed with a mental health condition to really take extra care because it hinders them a lot the most. With individuals that are diagnosed and they are experiencing different stressors that relate to the holiday season, it causes them to react different ways. It causes them to do things that they don't really realize that they can be able to do, such as, say, for example, if someone is diagnosed for substance addiction, if they are going through different phases within the holiday season that they're not able to handle or cope with it, they might be able to go back into using drugs, doing substances, because they could use that as a coping mechanism. So that's why it's important for individuals that have a mental health diagnosis to take extra care when they're dealing with the holiday blues. Extra stress, unrealistic expectations, or even sentimental memories can accompany the holiday season and can be a catalyst for holiday blues. As Brother Charlie just talked about grief and loss. With grief and loss, even though there are different stages of grief and loss, you can revisit it at any different time because whenever you go through certain moments and certain things that can trigger you, you can hit into a different phase or hit into a different stage of grief and hit to a different stage of experiences that could cause you holiday blues. Also, some individuals can be at risk for feelings of loneliness, sadness, fatigue, tension, and a sense of loss. So individuals that are more so that are not a person that doesn't really like to celebrate, holidays and stuff, they feel that sense of loneliness. They feel that sense of not being loved, not being cared about because they don't really know how to express themselves during the holidays because they don't really know how to express their emotions. And recently, during our promotion of this event, we brought up a fact about the holiday blues, and this fact is based on NAMI, which stands for National Alliance on Mental Illness, and it read that 64% of individuals deal with the holiday blues. So those 64% of individuals have a difficulty with, processing their emotions, processing their feelings, and how to handle those feelings because of going through the phases of the holiday season. So now what I want to give you are some tips on how to beat the holiday blues. So with beating the holiday blues, the different concepts are spiritual, social, physical, and mental. So with the spiritual aspect, with spirituality, that's more so dealing with service. So getting yourself out there, attending church, meet with individuals to do, particular services and giving back. And then also charity as well. So doing philanthropy work, doing things within your community that cause that sense of spirituality for yourself. For the social aspect, that's more so of events. So doing different events and activities that could be able to help you to cheer yourself up. So instead of sitting in the home and moping around, do something that you love to enjoy. So like doing like your favorite hobbies, interacting with individuals, calling individuals and things like that. Also connections. So interacting with your close friends, close family members, people that you will have a conversation with just to get yourself out of the holiday blues. Physical, with the physical aspect when it comes to that is more so your work activity. So basically exercising, making sure that you're being active, making sure that you are keeping yourself moving around, because most of the times individuals that are dealing with holiday blues, they do not want to move, they do not want to get active. So more so getting more active in the physical aspect. And then with your mental aspect, seeking help. So mainly individuals that are suffering during the holiday season, they don't really want to seek help. They don't want to address their emotions. But this is a time that you could be, it's okay to address your emotions and to, seek help. So going to therapy, going to a counselor, life coaches, and things like that. Now I want to turn it over to talking about the financial issues during the holiday season.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Red, and I am the second chair to Brother Victor Peoples on the Health and Service Initiatives. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the financial aspect of holiday blues. So a lot of times people stress and have a lot of worry because they don't have enough funds to get through life. And that's a reality for a lot of people today who are struggling just to make ends meet. It's already been a case that people live from check to check. So the emergence of COVID and how it has impacted people has also made for the financial issues that people are having even much worse. You have people that are on unemployment. You have people whose hours have been cut. You have people that are not working at all. So there's a lot of turmoil that goes with a lot of people as they deal with these things. Feeling overwhelmed on getting gifts for your family. A lot of people put a lot of pressure on themselves to get their children and their family members what they have asked for. And we also question ourselves sometimes, which creates anxiety and depression about whether or not we're actually doing as much as we should be doing. So I want to talk about how we can bring a little hope to how we can manage the financial troubles that we're going through. So one of the things we want to talk about is not to focus on, or to focus on your priority. So even though it's the holiday season, even though it's Christmas time, and we're having expectation to give gifts, we need to take care of our home. We need to take care of our bills. We need to take care of those things that are important. And we just have to let people know that we are not in a position to be able to give. But there are creative ways that we can give gifts. We can buy memorable, non-expensive gifts. Or as my family has done, we actually, because we have a large family, we pull names. So there's two people's name that you pull out of a hat and you get those two people a gift. And so you're not stressed with trying to get 10, 15 gifts for the whole family. Another thing that we have done as a family is we've actually made gifts. I had my aunt one year, she actually made a photo album for me of pictures from when we were children, loved ones that have passed on, my grandmother, grandfather, and things of that nature. So that was very beneficial to me receiving that at Christmas. It was more personal than getting a pair of jeans or a pair of gym shoes. And so we don't need to overdo ourselves when it comes to gifts. We just need to be creative in our thought process, which will help us to manage ourselves through these holidays. And quite frankly, just learn to say no. A lot of times we just need to tell people, hey, I can't do this for you, or hey, I can't do this right now. Or you could even maybe try to tell somebody, well, I can't get you anything for Christmas, but maybe for your birthday, I got you. So those are the things that we have to be thinking about, how to be creative. Don't try to go out and make major purchases just to please your family. Just try to make your way through this holiday the best way that you can. And so that's really all I have as far as advice is don't let buying gifts, don't let the commercialization of Christmas make you feel bad because you can't buy all the gifts that you want to buy. And so on that point, I will turn it back over to Brother Simpson, who is going to talk to you about the pandemic and how it has affected us during these holidays.
Are we still in a pandemic? You know, as we look around, we begin to see the numbers decrease. We begin to see other people become vaccinated, going out and about, trying to get back to some sense of normalcy. But we still have a few that may be apprehensive to being able to just step out and celebrate the holidays because of the pandemic. And so there are some things that we still have to ask ourselves, such as how are we going to celebrate the holiday season? Should we risk ourselves to be with our loved ones? And what should we say to the children about the changes? And if you go on to the next slide, it'll discuss some really good steps to take as you go through those questions. First and foremost, process the situation. What's best for you? Not trying to please other people, but what's best for you in this moment as we still remain in this pandemic, and more importantly, making sure that you're safe and making sure that your family is safe. That may require not going to a family member's house where there may be several people. That may require not passing out gifts to certain people because you might be fearful of just being exposed. But whatever situation that you're in, you must be able to process what's best for you. But more importantly, that second bullet point, accept the situation. Just like we said during the grief, you have that choice. Don't be bothered what other people may feel about your decision. Be able to be happy with the decision that you make. And now it comes to how do I communicate that if it impacts my nuclear family? How do I express some changes that may occur during this season to the kids? We're not going to grandmother's house this year. Grandmother's house will have a lot of people. We don't really feel comfortable yet being able to go. And I want to let you know that we're going to celebrate here. And if you have any questions with us not going to grandmother's, I'm more than happy to answer those questions for you. And that's just open and being transparent, being honest. Of course, kids have all different ages, so you do have to be age appropriate with how you present that information to your children. But then you can also go into some other ways that we can celebrate the holidays if we decide to do things differently. You can go to the phone calls, the video calls. A lot of the Zoom calls have become very popular. Being able to schedule those events with family members that you might not be able to see because you made a decision to protect your family at the moment. You can do a holiday drive-by with close family that's nearby. Being able to just schedule those drive-bys, drop off the presents, say your hellos, and just be able to continue moving on. But more importantly, also include the kids. Allow them to pass out those gifts as well. Also doing a holiday grab and go event. You just go grab your food, say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and just go on about your business during the holiday. That is a good question. A lot of we'll go to the question portion. I'll get to that one, Antonio. But the last holiday alternative is mailing letters and gifts to family members, just finding safer ways to be able to still enjoy the holidays, but do it in a more safe manner. Now I'm going to turn it over to Brother Robinson Sneed, who's going to go over addressing seasonal depression.
Thank you for that, Charlie. So we'll wait for All right, so when we're looking at seasonal depression, the technical term for it is seasonal affective disorder. And it really occurs, generally it does occur within like the winter season, just because the temperatures drop in, daylight saving time comes around the winter season. And so we're getting less sunlight. So this is where individuals typically display some of the following symptoms, such as feeling sad, cranky, hopeless, having less energy. Like we said, whenever we have less access to sunlight or that natural vitamin D, that really plays a part in our mood change. And so this also plays a big part in the spike in the experience of seasonal depression or seasonal affective disorder. We feel a lot of fatigue within our body, like our physical experience. We have a trouble concentrating, having a greater appetite. So growing a greater appetite with like eating different things, whether it's healthy or unhealthy. Typically, it's more it's less healthier foods that we grow a greater appetite for when we're experiencing seasonal depression. We have a more desire to be alone or to isolate ourselves from our friends and our family. We typically prefer to be alone in these experiences. We have thoughts of suicide, and then because of all of these different factors, we typically also have a weight gain. So these are just some of the common symptoms of seasonal seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression. But these are definitely not the only signs of what that looks like. But these definitely are some of the more common signs that we can see when someone's experiencing seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression. We're also going to talk a little bit about like working through seasonal affective disorder. Excuse me, I keep getting the name wrong, and then seasonal depression as well. So just like we talked about, exposure to sunlight, which is also technically called light therapy, is extremely helpful when somebody's experiencing seasonal affective disorder. And the reason that being is because you get that natural access and that natural exposure to sunlight that we need. And that is beneficial for us, especially when it comes to our moods. Eating foods that have high volume of vitamin D or taking vitamin D supplements also help. But of course, if you can get that natural exposure through sunlight as much as possible, that would be preferred. Exercising regularly. So when you have your physical exercise plan in order, whether it's at home or at an actual gym through a trainer or whatever the case may be, or even on a personal journey of physical exercise, that helps because physical exercise actually has direct benefits to our mental health because of the different chemicals that it releases in our brains, and pretty much regulates those positive emotions that we need to be able to feel well and to feel whole on a daily basis. And then getting your sleep daily. So getting the proper sleep also helps when it comes to working through seasonal affective disorder. Each person is different. So we do hear a lot about how the healthiest amount of sleep is like 8 hours. Excuse me. But 8 hours may be perfect for one person, but it may be too much sleep for another person. And it may be too little sleep for another person. So I really would encourage each person to kind of go, have conversations with their doctors and figure out what is the best amount of sleep for them to be their healthiest self. And once you get that information, I would say follow whatever instructions you get from your doctor or a specialist. And then the other thing that can help you work through seasonal affective disorder would be maintaining your social connections. So don't isolate yourself. Don't separate yourself from other people. And it does take a challenge. It sounds easy when we say maintaining your social connections. But when you're really battling through seasonal depression, you have to challenge yourself and push yourself to really do these things to help yourself out. And if you don't have, if you feel like you don't have the strength to challenge yourself, making sure that you have that accountability around you to challenge you, and people that are trusted voices in your life to challenge you and really push you to work through these different things and to apply whatever you need to be successful.
All right. So now what I want to share with you before we go into the Q&A portion of this event, I want to share out some important contact information that everyone can use while going through this holiday season. So the first one is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. That phone number is 1-800-273-8255. And then SAMHSA National Hotline. And SAMHSA actually stands for Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And that phone number is 1-800-662-4357. Now I want to open up to the whole panel and take some questions. And what was brought up while I was reading through the comments and everything while we was going through this presentation, the first question that popped up was about what if someone has felt as if they exhausted all these concepts, then what can be done? So I could start it off. So if someone actually exhausted all of the tips that was displayed in this presentation, to be able to go to someone, seek help. So go to a therapist. During that time, even when you go into a therapist, you might have to get evaluated before even seeking, services to see what is really, going on. So with the evaluation, the evaluation actually digs deep into what you're actually dealing with and what you're infected with, so we could be able to, so a professional could be able to help work with those things that you are, dealing with. Anyone else want to answer that question?
I would encourage to challenge yourself not to give up. I think sometimes when we try coping skills or different methods to work through whatever we're experiencing, I think sometimes we can give up too soon before we even give that method or that coping skill, the mechanism, time to really work. So I would say, if you're trying a different skill out, or if you're trying a different mechanism out, or whatever it is that you're trying to help yourself work through these experiences, I would say be consistent with trying it and give it some time to actually work. Because I don't think any of the factors or any skill that we try is a quick fix, easy scheme. We do have to really practice it and try it over a course of time before we even notice or witness that it's working. So I would encourage to just, be consistent, continue to try, and don't give up.
Anyone else want to answer that question?
I definitely concur. Oftentimes during difficult times, we implement what we know, and we implement how we know to cope. And oftentimes those coping mechanisms are so narrow that we often forget that there are other ways out there to get through difficult times. And you know what? Being able to get through difficult times is scary for a lot of people. And because of that fear, oftentimes we just suffer in silence and just do the best that we can to deal with our own hurt individually. And that's just where the challenge comes, that we do have to just be able to look in the mirror and say, I have to get some help. I need some additional ears to just navigate me through some uncomfortable emotions. And we just have to take that risk. I believe that we're doing a much better job, especially in the African American community, of taking a lot of those risks. We just need to continue overcoming this stigma, and media just has to continue doing a good job of letting people know that seeking mental health services is normal.
All right. Another question. Well, it was actually a comment, and I know Charlie, you had wanted to talk about it, and this was from Antonio Knox. It said the expectations on the father can definitely be overwhelming during the holiday season. I know you want to talk about that, so the floor is yours.
That definitely was a good question, because oftentimes fathers feel like we have to step up, we have to make things happen. And if we don't, there's a sense of failure that can be on the other side of that. And to avoid that failure, we push ourselves way beyond capacity, and we put ourselves in situations that can feel extremely overwhelming. And once again, no one wants to face failure. No one wants to see themselves fail, and to avoid that failure, we often just become extremely exhausted with carrying all the things that we carry. We do have to get to a place to say, you know what, I can't carry all this. You know, I have to let some things go. And if that requires facing failure, then that's a whole nother process in itself, to be able to see that it's okay to let some things go. And if you see that as failure, then it's okay to fail at some things that need to be let go. And that requires just a internal conversation with self to be able to face those fears. But once you find yourself facing those fears, you'll get to a place where you can say no a lot more, and you can take care of yourself. We hear a lot about self-care to make sure that you're okay, especially as we navigate through these holiday season.
Yeah, I wanted to add that as a father of a son who is now grown, when he was younger, I used to struggle with trying to get him everything that he wanted. But a lot of times we don't realize that children, they really aren't disappointed coming Christmas time as long as they're opening up some gifts. And a lot of times we just need to have a conversation with our children and say, hey, I can't get it for you for Christmas, but for your birthday, I'll try to get that for you. And you allow yourself a little time to make that happen rather than put so much pressure on yourself to try to get it done at Christmas. I remember my father, when we were about 15 years old, he wanted so badly to give all of his kids what they wanted, but he was laid off at the time. So we all got pajamas, and he felt really, really bad, but we embraced him and we let him know that all these years we had been getting Christmas gifts, everything that we asked for, and this one year we didn't. So it's okay. And I think we really made my dad feel so much better by telling him that. And I think a lot of times we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and children really can make you feel a lot better come Christmas time, when they open up the gifts and they're smiling, they're laughing, and they're enjoying the moment. So just tell everybody to just have a conversation with your children, and be honest with them about where you're at financially. A lot of times we hide that from our kids, and we really need to let that stuff be known so that the children, they have an understanding, and they just need to have that conversation.
And now we have a question that came from YouTube from Mr. Seven Habits One. And the question reads, could someone go through the 5 stages of grief when he or she loses their job? And I could start that off, and I could say yes. Someone that's loses a job could actually go through the 5 stages of grief. And when talking about grief and loss, we automatically, the first thing we think about is death. But we got to realize there's different concepts when it comes to grief and loss. There's job loss. There's loss in relationships. When it comes to like significant others, there's loss in friendships. And whenever, and certain like triggers during the holiday season that reflects to a job, reflects to a relationship that we had been in, or affects to a friendship that we've been through, it'll actually will bring up that concept of going through the stages of grief and loss. And like I said before, it doesn't go, it can go in order, but then also it can go into different forms of, it won't have to go into like the same order. It could just go spiral around at different parts depending on how you react to it.
And it's even more challenging around the holidays, just like Red was saying, because now it feels like we're obligated to provide in a moment where we don't have the means to provide. And just facing that trigger is going to trigger a lot internally for that individual, to the point where they can start that whole grieving process over. It can be a lot of anger toward the people that laid you off, or it could be some bargaining, some trying to go back to the job and say, hey, can you all get me on during this holiday season? Or it can even trigger some depression. You might just pull back, go to a very dark place, and just try to hide from the reality. But it's really important to face those triggers, to be able to say to yourself, you know, it is what it is. I have to find a way to communicate through this experience that I'm going through, communicate with the people and let them know where you are, like Red was saying. But more importantly, don't try to suppress those failures. Don't try to suppress that I'm not good enough, that maybe they won't see me as the protector. You know, you have to be able to face those uncomfortable emotions and be able to do what men don't really do very well, and that is express those emotions to those people that you really love.
All right. Here's another question that was brought up, and it was brought up by Pedro. So, in terms of gathering with family, what is your opinion about vaccinations? So,
Well, I will say our family, just this Thanksgiving and when we were together for Easter and COVID was at the height, we just took the necessary precautions to be together as a family. We did temperature checks with everybody that came over. They had to wear a mask while we were just socializing. When we started eating, you could take your mask off. When we went to gather around the table to get our food, it was only a certain amount of people allowed in the kitchen at one time, so we could keep the distance from everybody. So I don't think necessarily everybody has to be vaccinated. I think that's a personal choice, but I think that it's an important choice to make. But there's all sorts of ways to stay safe. Hand washing, masks, and social distancing has been working. I work in a hospital, and so I know that those things are working. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that don't believe in the vaccine, and you can't twist their arm, but you can just try to express to them as much as you can how you would like for them to be vaccinated if they come around the family. But that I think that shouldn't be something that is a make or break. Victor, you have something you want to add to that?
Well, I would just say, and I appreciate the question regarding the vaccine. Um, my stance, and this is Victor personally, is I'm under the mindset it's my body, my choice. I made a choice to get the vaccine, and I actually just got boosted last Friday. I just didn't want to be on the line of Omicron. So I did do my booster shot, no side effects, no nothing. Got it Friday afternoon, and nothing. So I'm cool in that respect. But when individuals ask what is Iota's stance on the vaccine, we do have a partnership with an organization called Good Health Wins, and through this partnership, we are um, tasked or with putting out messages regarding the vaccine, answering questions regarding vaccine hesitancy, and also the flu vaccine. Say through this initiative, once we are up and running with it, it will stress or provide information with why everyone from ages 5 and older should or can get vaccinated. It'll also help understand the effectiveness and to why to protect against severe diseases and almost for some death. Um, the benefits of the vaccine will far outweigh what's known as potential risk at this point. I know that earlier today, Dr. Fauci is stating, with the new variant, that it is now is a better time than ever to get vaccinated. So that's all I will say as it relates to the vaccine. And again, it's your body, your choice. I get everyone's some hesitancy and stuff of that nature, but the most of the thing that I would say to anyone is just before you do, make an informed decision instead of just doing it because it's the end thing to do or because everyone is saying that they have to. Just make an informed decision, do your research, and do what you feel is best for you and your family.
all right. Thank you for answering that question. Someone in the comment actually want Brother Charlie to go over the 5 stages of grief and loss again. Just one quick second.
Definitely. If you have any questions, I mean, you can easily Google the 5 stages, but they are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And once again, you can kind of go through the Google to see. But what's really important about the stages is that you have to allow your body to go through those stages, whether it's the loss of a job, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a church. You know, you're going to go through stages of grief, and is normal. It's expected. It's, you know, your right to go through those stages. Is your right to experience what you experience through each stage. You might jump back and forth. You might be in acceptance for a year. A trigger happens, such as the holidays, and you're right back going through some of those stages of grief. The overall objective is, how can I maintain some type of coping skills, healthy coping skills, that can get me through those grieving stages. And if you get stuck in any of the stages, oftentimes if you find yourself stuck in one of those stages, they say about 6 weeks or more, that might be a sign that you want to get somebody professional, or even somebody that has gone through a grieving process and made it to acceptance. You don't want to consult with somebody that is still in the anger phase, but even just finding somebody that has been through the grieving process that can help normalize what you're going through, so that you can move into acceptance.
All right. Thank you for that. We're going to be here for a few more minutes. If anyone else has any questions, please drop it in the comments on Facebook and on YouTube. And then if not, then we'll close this out. While we're waiting to see if any other questions are going to pop up, a question I have for all the panelists is, what are you expecting to receive from this presentation?
Well, I'll go first. I was actually glad to be a part of this panel, but I also look forward to getting the information, because I also have dealt with quite a bit of loss in my life for the past 4 years. I lost my uncle, my dad, and my cousin, who we were like sister and brother. And so for me, it's been difficult, but it hasn't been something that I could not get past. I just try to allow myself to uh, show the emotion that I need to show. I lean on the memories of those people, and I look at pictures, and I allow myself to go back in time, relive that, cry a little bit, but you also end up smiling a lot as well, because you think about all the good times and stuff. So for me, that's what I wanted to get out of this, just a direction. I think Brother Charlie and Brother Charles Robinson Sneed, they provided good information on just how to handle the emotional aspect of what we go through in the holidays, because I lost my uncle before Christmas, I lost my dad before Christmas, and I lost my cousin a week before Christmas. So Christmas time for my family is really kind of tumultuous, but we get past it and we get through it, and we just embrace those who are here.
And, you know, Red, I commend you for your transparency, just to be able to say, you know, the holidays for a lot of people are tough moments. And just to be able to give that permission and say it's okay to embrace those emotions. As a man, it's okay to have tears, and it's okay to let people know that there's hurt there as well. You know, I'm pretty sure many of us can say that we lost, you know, a lot of loved ones during really big critical moments of the year. You know, I lost a brother, you know, a few days before Christmas as well. And so, you know, it's important that we are able to share with those loved ones that we do have emotions as well. We might not always show it, but we do have emotions as well. And you know, Red, I just commend you for just being able to just express the importance of that transparency with expressing those emotions, even if it comes with tears. So I really just want all those that are listening to just be able to give yourself permission to have those emotions and to be able to express those emotions moving forward.
All right. Charles, you got
Oh,
any?
and I'm sorry, there's somebody brought up a really good point in the
Yeah.
chat. The importance of EAP services, employee assistance programs. Oftentimes, if you can go to your company, they'll provide so many free sessions. You can definitely go and look into, you know, those benefits that can definitely help you, a person, during a tough time at no cost. Thank you, Andrew, for posting that.
Um, Another question that was brought up, and this actually goes to Red, and well, no, it actually goes to all of us. It says how the rest of us deal with holiday blues, and that goes with Pedro. So I'll answer this with me. Like during the holiday season with me, it's more I love to be around my family. I love to, spend time with family and things like that. I know last year, during the pandemic, I chose not to, go home. Most of my family is in either Philadelphia, South Carolina, and Alabama. Also around this holiday season, it's Christmas, and then also it's my birthday. My birthday is the day before Christmas. So during that time frame last year, it kind of, it was hurtful because I'm so used to being around family a lot. But I kind of what I did around that time when I was dealing with holiday blues was mainly just call. I called my family members. I called every last one of them, just talk to them, just to get that sense of connection still, and still receive that love and support. And even during the day of my birthday, they actually did like a video call with me and saying happy birthday. I had my own personal cake with me here, and they had a cake. My mom and my sister and brother had cake at home, and they cut the cake. We all cut the cake at the same time just to celebrate my birthday. And this year is a little bit different because I'm actually going to, travel to see my family during this holiday season. I'm actually going to travel to see my father during this holiday season. And the reason why I chose to do that because I had made a commitment to my dad and to my family down there in Alabama to, socialize and communicate with them more, especially 2 years ago, I lost my grandmother around that time. And I mainly made a commitment to say I'm gonna go down to Alabama and spend time with my father and things like that, just to make sure that he's okay. Because I know how that could be when losing a loved one and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I embrace my family. I like being around my family. I think it's important that we, as I said before, talk about those that are not with us anymore. I actually like to write poems. And a lot of times during the holidays, I'll come home and I'll have a poem that I've written that would talk about those who are not with us anymore. And so you just find solace in the little ones that are coming up, your nieces, your nephews, if you're old enough, you have grandchildren, watching them, because that's how life is. Life is a cycle. And when you understand that and we start actually dealing with that, then it gets better. And so I will be embracing my family at Christmas, even though one of the bad things that I have to deal with now is my mom has dementia. But the good thing is she's healthy. She's still with us, and she has a reasonable amount of her faculties to be able to recognize us at times. And so you deal with all those kind of things. So it's just about coming to terms, truly coming to terms, and not just saying you're coming to terms with what things have gone on in your life, but actually saying, you know what, it's okay.
If I could interject, I think for me, where this actually is helping me, and I can only speak for Victor, is last year was the first year that I spent Thanksgiving, Christmas without my mother. This year, right before, actually the week before Thanksgiving, I lost my oldest brother to cancer.
Mm.
Um, I am a single father as well. And where it gets difficult is that you have to keep this mask on because I'm raising my child.
Right.
But the crazy part for me, and where I keep getting strength, comfort, and stuff of that nature, is just the sense of knowing that I'm doing right by my child. Not just that, there have been, to Brother Charlie's point, there's been 1,000 times I'll wait until my daughter goes to bed and I'll go in the bathroom, turn the shower on, and just cry like there's like no more tears left in me. Um, I find strength in cooking. And so my mom taught me how to cook at an early age. And I enjoy cooking just to take my mind off of things that are going on around me. I oftentimes find myself asking my mom for, hey, did I put too much in here? Or what you think I should do about this, that, and the third? So even though she's not here in the physical, we still carry conversations. Now, I think if she answers, then they say, then I might have an issue. But I all around my house there is something here that reminds me of my mom. So even though she's not here, she's here. On my Christmas tree, I just have ornaments of pictures of her on here, things from the service, the detachable angel that came off the casket. All that is on my Christmas tree. But I say all this to say, where these conversations are helping me is because those 5 stages of grief, I've been through those cycles over and over and over again. And I don't think there's really, I may be wrong because I'm not a doctor in that respect, but I don't think there's ever a time where you honestly say that you've gotten over it completely. Now, if you have, you either lying to yourself or you're lying to those around you. And that comes to where people say you just say what you think people want to hear. So that's where I am with this session for this evening. It's been great. Red and I had shared previously before my mom passed. Um, we had just found out that she had early onset of dementia as well, but she was coherent. She was cognizant as far as to who she was, who we were, and stuff of that nature. So, again, Red, I appreciate your transparency. And more importantly, I appreciate you all on this podcast this evening to speak truth to what does feel like to survive the holiday blues.
Can I leave with a quote?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Mr. Rogers from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood said, "You can always find a good thing in a bad situation." And that's what grieving is about. Even in the worst situations, we can try to find that glimpse of hope. When 9/11 happened and those planes hit the towers, we could have sat and cried about all the people that were losing their lives, but we could praise and give honor to those service men and women that were running in to save people. We can really just commend those that really wanted to make sure that people were safe. And just like you all have shared, we've been through a tough time, but I still have my mom that I still talk to. And, I've been through a tough time, but I still got my poetry that can really help express words. And even though I've been through a tough time, I have family and friends that have come around and made sure that I'm okay. So always remember there's something positive in the midst of the storm. Victor, I appreciate, man. I commend you for your vulnerability right now, man. This is really, really big for people to be able to see and to really be able to understand that it's all right for us to be especially as being in these vulnerable places. So, man, I appreciate you for your vulnerability right now.
I appreciate all you brothers coming on today. Brother Sneed, do you have anything that you want to say? I think we're almost time to wrap up.
Yeah, I actually was gonna say that Victor and I are one and the same. I actually grew up learning how to cook from my mom as well, and that's something that I took with me, you know, into my adulthood, because it's pretty much how I cook. I cook by cooking and baking, and so I lost my grandmother in 2009. And so I find myself every now and then the best way that I'm able to get through that grieving experience is I'll think of something that she would make, whether it would be breakfast, lunch, dinner, or dessert, and I'll make it. And that's how I connect with my grandma through that experience. And so I definitely think that, you know, cooking and baking is a great way to, you know, if you find that to be enjoyable, if you find that as a way of connecting to your loved ones, um, excuse me, that's definitely a method that I use to get through my process, get through whatever it is I'm feeling, get through my emotions, to grieve and whatnot. So I definitely uh, connect with you there, Victor, for sure. And I definitely appreciate you sharing as well, man. Everybody sharing and being vulnerable and open.
Yeah. And just for that, we're going to close out this event this evening. I hope everyone out there that has been watching, we thank you for, you know, viewing this series, viewing this event, excuse me, and then taking heed to the topics that we actually discuss on Holiday Blues and the tips that you could be able to use to, you know, get through the holiday season. Also, I just want to remind you all to not forget to look at the contact information that we provided on the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number and the SAMHSA number. Also, keep a lookout on Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube channel, and website for more information about T.I.M.E and the events that we have coming up in the future. We thank you all for joining us, and have a good evening.